o'clock a.m. Pacific time, meaning it's 10 o'clock New York time, and we're at the beginning of our session. We're experiencing a little bit of technical difficulty with internet connectivity of Darren at the moment and Greg, both apparently at the same time. So I will be on for now and here to walk us through the session. I do not have an account with the broadcasting that we use for the ladder, so we do not have a ladder up at the moment either, but I will be here to be announcing the setups and announcing the viable trades as they come into play. So just at the moment, taking a quick overview of where we're at, we have conflicting tens, so we do not see any foreseeable trends over the course of the next 10 minutes. We have a strong trending downwards 5A, 5B, even 5C, and I'm realizing one of those red arrows would have been a valid red arrow to take for a trade. So what we'll look for at this point, as we've already seen a few arrows come in, we'll wait for a pullback before we consider entering into our next 5A or 5B. We have our threes angled downwards as well. They're just around 45 degrees, a little bit flatter. We have our C bias angled down, a little bit weaker than 45 degrees. And here we have our pullback. We've bounced off of the 1956.50 spot. So we're going to be looking for another red arrow for our entry point on a 5A or a 5B. That's just something I'll be watching as we're looking for the next entry point. If you're new with us today, welcome to the webinar. We're happy you're with us. And you can download the handouts that are on the side of the main webinar screen. Those will assist you in understanding the language that we use as well as what we look for before we enter a trade. Again, waiting for the next red arrow for a 5A, 5B setup. Still waiting on that arrow. Here's the arrow. Right at 56.75 or 57, depending on when you would have entered that. Have a stop pulled back. We have just over a 10-point range so far for the day. Our stop behind 57 would be 59. That's a 2-point stop behind 57. Fives are still angled downwards. Our A bias, our B bias are both very nicely angled down. Tapping on the level, if it pushes through the 59. Entry point was 57.00. It tapped on the 59 level. Didn't push through. We're going to pull the stop back to 2.5 points behind 57. It'll be at 59.50. With the replot at 7:05 a.m., we still see 5A, 5B valid for a trade downwards. And it pushed through the 59. Still pushing around this level. Stop again is at 59.50. 2.5 points behind the 57 entry point. we're seeing a little bit of information showing a push upwards from our smaller charts. Our 1s are up, our D is up, E is down, our 1s are maybe entering the top of their range. 3s are bottomed out, and we just push through. That was a 2.5 point loss on 5A.
I'm here now, Brandon. The internet issue sorted out here. I just heard the tail end of there was a first trade, was there?
Right, that was a 5A trade, entry point at 57, 57.00, and 2.5 point stop.
Okay.
So not exactly what we wanted, nor was it what the trends predicted, but not every trade will go our way, and that's okay. We understand that no software will ever predict 100% exactly what the market will do, and I guess this is one of our other times when we see the trend and it goes the other direction. So that's okay. That's also something to keep in mind, as we've seen one trade now where the market went against the trend that we saw. That's just something we'll keep in the back of our head as we're looking for trends and looking for angles as well, considering the next trades that we're taking.
We do have another 5A on another red arrow. We do have the challenge. I'm sure you mentioned it with the 3 minutes turning, and in terms of having a potential 3 effect here. I see that the 3 is moving back to green. It just flipped back to red, and seems to be oscillating a little bit. I think once we see those volumes turn at the top and start to see that F bias and E bias angle down, we do have still a 5A. It'd have a bigger pullback. There is a sell signal for that. 59.25 and 61.25 is a point of resistance. And we do have to continue to track these ones. And it looks like we are still continuing to push up. Those 1 minutes are still up there. Need to give ourselves 2 tick leeway on that 61.50. The other challenge is that the A bias is still pretty thick in the green. I did get stopped out on that as well.
Something to mention, something we don't talk about very often, is the attack row at the very bottom of our screen. And I'd just like to draw everybody's attention to the attack row. We can see some information in some of our attack charts that show that we may be looking for some information for an upward trend in the market. And even though we don't talk about it very much, this is still something that I personally watch when we're looking for information on which direction to trade. If you're looking at the H attack right now, which is in the 5-minute column, right below the 5 erg and the B bias, the H attack shows there are 2 lines, the red line and the green line. The green line represents the buyers, and the red line represents the sellers. At the moment, we can see the green line and the red line about to cross, meaning that we're about to see a shift, and there's the shift. The shift from sellers to buyers having more pressure on the market, meaning that there are, now, since the green line is above the red line, buyers have more pressure than sellers at this given point in time on the market. Now, if you go to some of our smaller time interval charts, let's look at the K attack and the J attack. Also, for purposes of looking for any trade opportunities, at the moment we have Our bottom 5 just around 45 degrees, maybe a little bit shy of 45 to my eye. Still certainly have the A bias angled downwards, B bias angled downwards. If the 5 were to regain just a little bit of strength, that would be certainly another 5A, 5B down.
Yeah, I think this was the begin of that move down, at any rate. That first arrow, it did move down a point there on that, but we were looking, as you say, at the 5 beginning to turn. Ideally, those things would have lined up on the first, if not the second, of those opportunities. Here we see the 5 weakening, and the market moves down for a point there. So we didn't have that in the alignment that we wanted. Looks like that bottom 5 may be losing a little bit of that curve. There was a little bit of a pullback with a white arrow. Let's see if this comes together. In the meanwhile, our 3 minutes are still in the throes of potentially turning here. So there still could be more 3 effect that we saw in the first 2 trades impact us. 56.50 up to 62.50, 6-point pullback as we're in the midst of this 3 effect. There's the 3s now fully turned. And perhaps that would be the extent of the 3-minute effect now. See the 1 starting to turn down, see the volumes and the tick as well beginning to turn down. So those 5s, the bottom one has come back. The A is now a little bit below that dotted line. We can look for another red arrow, and we are looking at our extras here now in terms of tracking, but we do see 2 stair steps, broader stair steps upward in terms of the 3 effect impacting there, even though we did have a good 5A. There's an arrow that did come in at 59.75 in terms of the 5A. Had dropped down already, Brandon, almost 3 points there from the beginning of that move down. Only at the bottom of it did we see that sell arrow come in. 61.75 is the 2-point stop, and we'd have to put it back almost a point and a quarter in order to get it above that 62.50 level. It's a little bit far to move that stop back that far. Someone's asking about a 2.5-point stop. It'll just put us right at that level. In fact, it actually just took me out there before I was even able to consider what would have taken out a 2.5-point stop there if we had have done that. So there is the challenge here today, is that we have movement happening here outside of our setups in terms of the bigger base 5. I do have the 3 minutes that are angled upward. We can consider scalps upward. Don't have anything here at the moment. Again, that bottom 5 minute, still 45 degrees. A is still there. We've done 3 5As here in terms of tracking, and each one of them have been impacted by 3s continuing to turn. EK may be spiking upward. Don't have the ticks in agreement or the F. And bottom 5 minute may be starting to curve a little bit more. It is flashing as it moves down in the down a few ticks, it does give us back the 45-degree angle. Actually, I think we're off of the A bias a little bit from 45 degrees. Just measuring that against the ghost line. Looks like our volumes are beginning to turn. To have the 3 minutes upward, not at 45 degrees. Certainly upward for a scalp consideration. Well, volumes are not there. E spiked, that's about it. It did move up there a few more ticks. We did break through the high of the morning, which is 63.25, by a few ticks on that press. As Brandon probably mentioned, we are greater than a 10-point range. So we are looking at 45 degrees in our biases, and we just continue to plow through here. Again, just in my eye slightly off on that A bias. Bottom 5 minute may still be 45 degrees, though it is certainly curved. B bias starting to curve as well. So just in a little bit of a limbo here area. We do have the scalp considerations upward, but at the moment our scalp charts are moving downward. And this may be a bounce off of that level. Let's see. Spiking in the E, we may look to press up again here. Keep our eyes if there's anything on the scalp charts. At the moment there's nothing. That A bias still looks like it is slightly off of 45 degrees. E spiking, we've got a F and a tick in agreement. Let's see the K beginning to pattern across as well. If there is, the F is backed off here. That could come back in very quickly. And K did back off, as did the E. So did have that press upward, but not everything lined up. EK pressing now, our F still angling down. Volume D. And again, that F is just not there. It is spiking now. Here's another arrow. Did just come in fully almost 3 points ahead of where we wanted to see that arrow come in with the setup. 1D still in place, 3D even on a transition basis. Just setting and forgetting at the 1 point there. I'd like to have seen those earlier arrows measure up with the scalp. It just was not in place. Let's see if we can, on a set and forget, starting to see a 3C, 3-1 here. Again on a transition as that D has gone soft. Still pressing here. Tapped on the 1 full point. Tapped again. Surprised that actually hadn't filled. D is back in again. See that bottom 5 minutes starting to turn green. If you are just continuing to look at this as a scalp, 3 ticks was certainly open. We're still looking at this on a 3-1 basis. The 3 ticks would have filled multiple times there. Sorry, the scalp would have filled multiple times there at the 3 ticks. Still with the 3-1. D, C, a little bit of angle. To continue to look at this as a 3-1. C, starting to flatten slightly. Still hovering in this break-even range. See the tick beginning to turn, and this may be a little bit of an assistance in terms of a pull-up or push-up. And watch that top 1 minute. I feel like this could just push up very quickly, so I want to still be able to give some respect here. And our 1 starting to soften here, starting to come back in again. And lost our 1, not able to transition out of that. And just got out there 2 ticks down. And again, that was on a scalp basis, a 3-tick fill there multiple times. If you had have just continued on that approach and not looked at it as a 3D, 3-1, 3C. And here's the push through that we were waiting for the last time. If we see a scalp come in again, sometimes I do like just the set and forget, but we do try to track according to the rules. That was a transition to the base 3, which was setting the target at 1 point. And that would have filled the 1 point there, but didn't have the setup any longer. See the E spiking again here. Let's see if we can see an EK with the tick and the F. 3s are still straight up for a scalp upward. A, B, and C all have some measure of angles downward. Those 5s have been in the process of turning there for a period of time. There's pressure upward, but not in any manner of trend here. Really just emotional pushes happening here. Volumes are up nice, but nothing to pair with that. And they're starting to wane themselves. Volumes coming back in again. Let's see if something will match up with those volumes. See the F spiking and the ticks there. And nothing holding on those biases to match with the volumes. E may come in though, spiking in and out, and we've lost the ticks in the course of the volume EK coming in. You may see a volume E again. We'll need to see the F angle up with an arrow in the ticks. There's the volume E with the F. Now we need to see the ticks and an arrow. Backing in and out with that E. So volume E spiking. Again, that F is the one thing that's trailing behind here. And the ticks flashing again into red. Maybe close to a 3D. We would need to see a pullback. And nothing to be able to track on these arrows and these moves up here.
So just taking a general look at the charts today. So clearly we've had some losing trades already. We're looking at some pretty clear information from the charting, but the market's behaving in the opposite direction. This is okay. This happens sometimes. We have losing days, and so far today seems like the market has other ideas than what's being predicted from our algorithms. So what we want to do is we want to take a bit of a step back and look at the overview of the market and try to discern a general direction for the day. And looking at the range of where we're at, we opened at just around 1951. We're hovering around 1968, and yesterday we closed right around 1947. So we're higher than yesterday, and we have shown somewhat of an increase over yesterday and the day before. The latter is actually in front of the numbers from where we closed for a couple of days ago, but it was a bit lower than our range for yesterday. So we see that we're on, just over the last couple of days, somewhat of an upward trend. That gives us a little bit of information. If you look at the 10s, our 10 erg chart is completely conflicted. Our red erg line is 45 degrees down. Our green 10 erg line is 45 degrees up. So it'll be nice once the 10s have sorted themselves out to see a bit more trending information in terms of which direction the market will take. We still have our 3s angled upwards. We don't have any scalp information to take with them. In fact, it's interesting to see that we had 2 red arrows appear just now and no move downwards. So even that, one of the things we talk about is the act of defying gravity. We like to refer to as our trends as the gravity of our software. So if we have our 3s angled upwards, then you would want to say that we have some gravity angled up. However, at the moment we have scalping information for a trade going down. We have our 1s, our volumes, our D, our E, even our F is all angled downwards. We don't have our 3s with us, so we cannot consider any of these red arrows for a scalp downward, as per one of our new rules. However, we still have a considerable amount of information in our short-term charts facing downwards. So at the appearance of those three even red arrows at first, it was worth noting that there was no immediate push downwards. So the market is conflicted right now. We see some trending information that would explain a move upwards or downwards, but right now we want to see a lot more clarity and just have a little bit more confidence before we take any other trades. So again, it looks like we're pushing down just a little bit here. We don't have any valid information for a trade. Again, our 1s, our D, our E, our volume, our F, almost our tick as well. All of our smaller term charts are looking at a push downwards, but it looks like we're coming towards the end of that now, even as the E is starting to flatten, the F is flattened, the tick chart is starting to turn green.
We are on the 10, 5, and 3-minute trend lines here as well. Large support.
So in terms of direction for the day, what we want to do is take a step back and look at what we can see, what we can ascertain from trending over the day, over the last 10 minutes, since the session has begun. So let's begin with since the session has begun. Our day opened at just around 1951. We're at about 1965 right now. So we've had an increase of just around 15 to 17 points so far on the day. That gives us information showing that even though the 10s were conflicted, we saw a push upwards. Now, our A bias and our B bias were down during a good portion of this push, so the market decided to push upwards over the last, it's been about an hour since the market has opened. So we can use this information to know that the market has somewhat of an upwards approach so far. In the last hour, it's been pushing upwards. Now we can see actually our 10, if you look at our 10 erg chart, our green 10 erg has started to flatten. So in the foreseeable future, we could be looking at a trend downwards. And before, while we were trading on the 5 erg chart, trading a 5A, 5B on our first trades, and then beyond that, still looking at the 5s for more information. If we were to trade on the 10 erg chart, our 10 erg chart is the strongest chart on the software. So if we see information from the 10-minute charts, then we can have certainly more confidence than we had before when we were taking our trades. So for now, we're keeping an eye on our 10 erg chart. Until then, we don't have any information that will show us which way to trade. In fact, the charts are finally showing us that we have conflicting information all across the board. Our 10s, our 5s, our 3s, they're all conflicted at the moment. Now, if you look at our biases, our A is down, our B is not 45, but it's still angled down, our C is 45 down, our D is right around 45 down, our E is 45 down. So we have a lot of bias information showing that we're looking for a push downwards. So we're still waiting again on the 10 ergs to turn, and really for any of our ergs that are valid for taking a trade to turn. Our 10 erg is now flat, the top one. Our bottom one is still certainly red, and our A is down, B is just under 45, but that could gain strength. Our 5, the green 5 line, has started to flatten as well. Interesting to consider. So again, right now, we're just sitting back and relaxing. We're letting the charts show us more information. Yesterday, I made the analogy of our 3s being a bit of a rebellious teenager, not really being sure of themselves, needing more time to figure themselves out. That's exactly what we're going to do here. We're going to let them be a rebellious teenager. We're going to sit back and wait until they understand themselves. And then we're going to use the information they get from their moment of clarity to consider our next trade. Until that happens, we're just going to sit back and watch the show. Let them be emotional, let them be conflicted, wait until they can mature and grow up and tell us something that makes any sense. So the 10 ergs, we're looking for the top 10 to be red, and even the 5s, if we can see both 5 lines angled downwards 45 degrees, we'll have some more information. Until then, we're just waiting for the charts to give us more. Also, going back to what the information I was speaking about earlier about the attacks. So the attacks represent pressure on the market from the buyers versus sellers. If we see that the green line is over the red line, as we do in the K attack right now, then we can tell that there is more pressure in that time interval, futuristically, that time interval for the buyers than the sellers. There's just more pressure from the buyers at the moment with the green line above the red line. Now, if you look at the J attack, the red line is above the green line, and there's about to be a J attack cross. So we can see that in the next 1 minute interval, as the J attack is in the 1 minute column with our charts, then we can foresee the potential for some pressure upwards with the buyers having more pressure than the sellers. Same with the I attack, there was more pressure with the red line over the green line. Same with the H attack. In fact, the H attack cross already took place. We have more buyers than sellers in terms of pressure. So just taking into account the attack information, I'm sure many of you have thought about the attack charts, and we don't certainly talk about them too much, but something to consider. It's not necessarily something we would use as a setup for a trade, but it still can give us information on where we're looking for direction on the day, and certainly on a day like today where we have not had a lot of success with the terms of our trending with the charts. We want to be looking for as much information as we can. I like to be a very confident person when I make my trades, and I like to look for as much information as I can before I enter a trade. So our top 10 has turned red. We're still wanting an angle on that to angle 45 degrees. It's still flat, even though it's red, it's flat. So we're still waiting. Still, it's nice to see that it's turned red and it's starting to turn downwards. So again, just waiting until we see some more clarity in the 10s, the 5s, and the 3s. Until then, we have no valid setup, and there would be no reason to take any of the arrows that are coming in on the 317 tick chart.
Well, we have wonderful 10-minute ergodics now, Brandon. After that last plot at 1040, we have a set of 10, even very close to a 10A. I like to see these volumes begin to turn down as well as the ticks, but we may see something that does develop downward. Challenge we will find here as well is likely those 1 minutes may still have a full range of cycle in them. They're just starting to turn up. So We will look for the next red arrow on a setup 10. And I think there's 45 degrees on that A bias, if you can see that also. We could also look at a 10A on the next red arrow. Want to see both the volumes and the ticks move down. Could be enough to counter those 1 minutes. We also have to keep an eye on those 5 minutes that are at the bottom turning green. That could be an impact upward as well. So the more pullback upwards, the better. Let's say that A bias looks like it's very close to 45. One minutes are starting their transit upward. That D moves into green. That could be a strength in that 1 minute upward here. In the meantime, let that strength come in, let it complete itself before coming in line together downward. We see the ticks beginning to move down. They've tried a couple of times. Here's the F. Do have our setup 10. And our 10A, if there is a red arrow. See the volumes beginning to turn. Still with E bias in the green. Though it is angling down. This setup 10 does come in. We may look at this even as a compound downward. We are in this tighter range. You can see 64 to 68.50, 875 since just after 10 o'clock. So it is still a tighter range here. Still have the impact of the 1 minutes. We see the F spiking up. Again, 1 minute's transiting further in their range. Looks like we're losing a little bit of the 45 degrees on the A bias. It is flickering in and out. So we come down to the bottom of the range. We have the setup 10 and the 10A. Looking for a red arrow. As it transits up to 67.25, we lose a little bit of that A bias from 45. Ideally, we want to see the ones come together here with the volumes and the ticks downward. May see an arrow here, though. There's an arrow. And we will look to try to trail this and also consider a compound as well. $68.25 is 2 ticks below that $68.75 high. We'll need to pull that back even upwards of a point there just to give it leeway on the 10A. 10A beginning to come off here a little bit in terms of that A bias. Do still need these ones to turn. See the ticks beginning to turn and that A coming perhaps back down again, but it's fighting here to move down. Once these components all come together, we really could see a flop down, and that A bias is now gone. So I have to get out of that setup 10A at 5 ticks down on that. Just with the loss of that A bias, we may see it come in again. We are in need of these 1 minutes to turn. We'll look to compound this setup 10 though. At the 2 increment levels, which I've just put in those orders for it. A may be coming back to 45 degrees again. Just off trending here slightly. And of course, just it's changing the dynamics of our setups marginally. A bias almost back to 45 degrees. Haven't seen a red arrow yet. Again, that A is just slightly off. Looks like this is going to start to move down with the 1 minute's turning. Flickering on that A bias just off of the 45. Fortunately didn't have it there on that arrow. Wavering on that A bias. I think this is going to move down. This is what we wanted to see, but we can certainly look to compound this setup 10. 3 minutes starting to turn red. A little bit more angle on that top one to be able to consider scalps downward. That A bias is almost back to 45 degrees. So again, just on that last arrow that we did consider the setup 10A on, just was that little bit soon in terms of the cycle for this start of this move downward. Did tap on 5 ticks there. If you had have just been looking at your setup 10 as a 1-point target, would have filled that 1 point there. We do have to walk through the challenge of the ticks turning, and the volume looks like it may be trying to turn here. F and L spiking downward, so that may give us recovery downward. Also, if we can see those 1 minutes turning, those 3s beginning to come in here for scalp potential downward. E spiking down. Volume's not 45. If you're looking for the scalp, we may be seeing an EKF beginning to show itself downward. We need the tick to follow suit. 3s turning almost to 45 degrees with the top one. It's certainly there for scalps. Again, that A bias just a little bit shy of 45 degrees for another opportunity on a 10A. Our ticks moving up, volumes turning. Our 1 minutes did not completely turn yet, and you're spiking in our E, our F. Moved us up here in this range. Still have a resistance at 68. Let's see if that can be a bounce here. 5 minutes starting to turn up with a little bit more clarity as well. Could be impacting this once we see these ticks turn. I'd like to also see those volumes turn back down again also. 1s have not followed suit. We're seeing a spike in the E, and that is keeping us elevated here for the time being. We may also look on the next red arrow if it makes sense to consider a double of the setup 10. Softened on one of our 10-minute ergodics there. Looks like it's still in the range of 45 degrees. Our A bias has certainly come back to 45 degrees on that last plotting. And actually it looks like our 10-minute erg is less than 45 degrees there. We do have point of resistance here at 68. Let's see if we hold this level and recover downward, and we don't have that. Just had to get out of that setup 10. It's an opportunity. It first started to soften there at the 68. Wanted to see if it would hold that level and give it the opportunity to recover that angle, and it just shot through. Ended up having a point further on that loss there. And market shot up here instead. Still holding that 5-minute trend line.
I must say, this is a very interesting, not in a very positive, interesting kind of way, in my opinion, but very non-expected way that the market is behaving right now. I can say that I haven't done all that much moderating, but in my experience, when we have a setup 10, the market usually behaves with the setup 10. So the information we're seeing is certainly not normal right now. To see two red 10s and an A bias angle downwards, and then to see the market push upwards. That was about a 7-point push that we just saw. Even now it's about an 8-point push. It's very unusual for today. The market is certainly behaving emotionally, and at this point we're at beyond our 4 points of loss on our normals tracking, and now we're over 4 points of loss on our extras tracking. So we will not be trading any further in terms of tracking purposes. Today's an emotional day, and we're hereby putting a stamp on today and saying the market is not behaving normally. So we'll continue to track the setups as they're coming in. We'll announce the trades as they appear, but in terms of recording the profits and losses of the trades as they come in, we've hit our limit for today. We've already hit the 4 points normal, 4 points extras. So again, this is unusual. I have not seen a push like that, I don't think ever before, honestly, to see it push against the setup 10 so dramatically. Again, we'd like to take a step back and just look at the trending information we can identify with so far, see if we can make any sense of what's taking place right now. We could see that over the last 2 days we've been pushing up steadily. We've gone from a range of around 1910 all the way up to, from 2 days ago, all the way up to 1970, which is where we're at right now. So we can see that over the last couple of days we've had a push upwards in terms of a slower, longer term trend. In terms of the 10-minute charts, we can see our 10 ergs are both angled down, our A is angled down. Our top 10 is flat. It's possible that our 10s are cycling through and they're going to be matching the push upwards, but really right now we aren't sure about the charting versus market information. We're seeing emotion, and when we see emotion we want to do the smart thing. We've accepted that we've already achieved some loss for today. We want to take a step back and just take the safer approach, and day to day we want to be winning on average, not winning big wins. And so even if today is a losing day, what we want to be looking for is the expectation that over the course of the next day, tomorrow, and the next week and the next 2 weeks, that we're looking for small wins and small gains. So in terms of today, if you're just tuning in again with us, we're hit our 4 points of loss on our normals, 4 points of extras. Today we're putting a stamp on and we're saying that the market is emotional and not trending with our charting. So we're taking a step back and we're saying that the trades are no good for today. And it's possible that trending could come in the second hour of the session, but myself and Darren will be watching. We'll be announcing if that does happen. For now, if you're with us and you also have traded 4 points down, then of course now is the time to get out and to accept that not a great day. Those happen, and we're honest about them, and we're being honest now. Today's not the best day that we've had. So we'll be looking for hopefully better information for tomorrow, better trending, and hopefully some profits. It's always nice to have with trending and not a lot of emotion. If we have a comment saying I'm repeating myself, I do apologize. I am a little bit new to this still. If there are any questions about how the software works, now is not a bad time for explaining some of the charts. If there are some questions on the attack charts, which we certainly don't talk about very often, we can certainly answer those. If anybody would like to hear about some of the style we're looking at now with our threes being a filter for our scalps, if you want to hear about the rules regarding the setup 10s, feel free to ask any of those questions. It is important to note that we are confident over the long run, and even though right now we're not looking at any confidence in the market, over the course of the year we're still up around over 200 points of profit, and in the last month or so, with some of the global news we've seen, Greece, China, and even some of the federal news we've seen, we have done considerably better than most of the other trading groups that are out there. The Dow being down 400 points on Black Monday of last week, that was one of the largest drops we've seen in years. And we, as a group, saw a drop in the S&P 500. We saw quite a significant drop. And even on the negative day, we saw 26.5 points of profit. Our software performed very well on a very emotional, very dangerous day for a lot of people out there. And just as I work on the phones, I've spoken with many interested callers in the last week and a half from other trading groups saying, we heard about how you did well, how in the world is that possible? And so we know that our software works. We're not losing confidence in our software, we're losing confidence in the market for today. So over time, we know that the software works, and it performs, and we have 200 points of profit, and what we're doing is we're protecting that profit. If you're looking at 200 points overall, we haven't lost those 200 points. If you look at 200 and let's say we were at 220 points in the last couple of weeks, and we then saw a few losing days, we went down to 210 points over the course of the year. Compare that to the Dow dropping 400 points if you were in a trading group that would have traded at an entry point.
Sorry, Brandon, we're coming almost into a 5A upward. Let's sort of watch that. All excellent comments that you had there, and right on the money. I just want to clarify, we are still, in terms of tracking setup 10s if they do come in. We were down 4 points non-setup 10 in the regulars, actually a little bit over that, and then 4 points exactly on the extras non-setup 10. Someone asked about the last setup 10, last and only setup 10, we were down 2 3/4 points. Just letting it, at the time, see if it would bounce off that 68 level, and it ended up bouncing through and getting out at 69, so that was 2 3/4 points. And just in saying that, our A bias has gone flat, and the market is pushing up without us being able to at least test. So we will be looking, as Brandon said, in testing anything other than the setup 10s at the moment, if they do come back in. Anything else will be testing to see if trending is coming back. But the real key to take out of this is, even in the last few weeks, but certainly in the last 4 or 5 months, there's not been a lot of trending, and trending is key. Really, there's no profit made in most all, or I'd say almost every system out there without there being trending in the market. Emotion destroys trending, and we've been seeing very emotional weeks and months here the last while. Hopefully as we come into September after Labor Day and get back into perhaps more normal routines, we'll see that trending return in a more consistent fashion. Again, we're not looking at the 5s anymore with the loss of the A. We may be coming back to something in the base 10 to test and or track with a setup 10. That bottom 10 minutes just slightly off of 45, as well as I think the top. So just to cut in there, Brandon.
And just looking at our trends, we can see our 10s both weakening. Our A is angled down. It was angled up a minute ago. The 5s are up, B is flat, C is flat-ish, 3s are conflicted. It's very interesting with the 3s. They seem to stay conflicted. Even when they change and they replot, they just conflict again. If you look back about 5 minutes of plotting on the 3s, they were top one was green, bottom one was red, now the top one is red and bottom one is green. So, okay. And we have some trending information downwards in terms of our scalping charts. Again, 3s are conflicted, so we cannot consider any of these scalps. We have no clarity in terms of a trade, potential for a trade right now, so we'll be looking for better information before we consider any trades. And we'll need a bias angled upwards to consider trading with the 5 ergs. We'd like to see a little bit more strength on the bottom 5 erg line. And again, this is me commenting on exactly what information I would be looking for in terms of more information for a trend. And realistically, on a day like today, what I personally would like to see is we identify a setup as 2 charts of a green direction, one of those charts being an ERG chart. And what we're looking for is a setup is just 2 charts. But what I, in personal preference, like to see is we can take more confidence in a trade when we're looking at more than 2 charts. So at the moment, let's say we're looking at both 3 lines are red and the bottom 3 is not 45. However, that does give us permission to take a scalp if we see scalping information come on.
Sorry, Brandon, I think we do have 45 on our 10-minute ergodics now. So we are in a position to look on the next potential red arrow here for a 10, setup 10. We may also be able to test a 10A. I think that A bias is looking like it is in there as well. So that may be a test to do. Again, not for our extras tracking. They've already hit the 4-point loss. We'll need to test those setups here to see for success in order to determine whether trending is coming back again. And let's see what we have here. Again, we're looking at the 1 minute's beginning to turn. We may see this push up. We've certainly had a little bit more of a pullback with a few more white arrows. Still have the 10s at 45 and that A at 45, so we'll be looking for a tracking of a setup 10 and a test of a setup 10A on the next red arrow. So there was a track there that we can do of our setup 10 and our 10A. I'm just going to target a 1 point here. I'm not going to try to trail the setup 10A, but I will look to trail and maybe even compound the setup 10. But we'll look for that to be tight. First off, looking to just fill that 1 point target on the 10A. Is coming down here in this range. This is trending a little bit here at this point with the turn of the volumes. Even that E bias coming down in the D, spiking down. Still have the setup 10 and the 5-minute turning. So that's interesting there. We are going to put in our compound levels here. Did fill the 1 point there on that setup 10A. So that's one step in the positive direction here to trending, perhaps returning. We'll just keep note of that. That was in a test mode. We are still tracking the setup 10s. And as I say, we'll try to compound. We do have a 69 basically as the next low. That is just ahead of the 69.25 first compound level. We could see this begin to move down. We're on the 10-minute, 5-minute, 3-minute trend line. And we have been looking for setup 10 downward for quite a while in this rise. We may be starting to see this now as the 5s begin to turn down here. This does move through and fill the first compound level at 69.25. It'll adjust my break even to 70.25. This level here, it's not moving down as quickly as we would like to see. Starting to see our ticks move off here a little bit. Ticks may need to follow through on its cycle. Still have the volumes down, still have the E and the D down. 1 minute's trying to turn in a tighter range here for a period of time. Since about 10:45 it looks like. Broader range, but still tight, 73 to 69. Let's see if this can come right back down again with the ticks turning. And even the 1 minute's following suit. It will be interesting to see if we do attack that 69 level and if we can move through it. 1 minute's just turned both green on us. The F bias spiked into green. There was the root cause of our bigger push up here. Interesting that setup 10 also had an opportunity at a 1 point target. We do take a bigger view of things in terms of our setup 10. Bit of a curve on that bottom 5 minute, the top one starting to flatten. I like the fact that the B bias is down as well as the C, both of them in green still. But let's see for this to move down below that 69.50 level, attack the 69, fill that first level of compound. We are off on our A bias here slightly, so we can't look at a 10A again at the moment. There was that window there on that test of the 10A that did fill for the 1 point the last time the market was down here. And these ticks turning, ones are just a little bit inconsistent. Volumes may be starting to turn toward the green side, at least one of the ergodics. And we do still have the F spiking here into the green. We'll need to see that dissipate. In this manner, even though the last opportunity in the setup 10 and even some of the base 10s have not worked out, normally when trending is there, there's extreme confidence in those 10-minute ergodics over the course of the bigger view of things. And we still have that confidence in it, even though the last few opportunities it hasn't worked out for emotional reasons. We still defer to that being the case. Come down again here to that level. Let's see if we can begin to attack that with a little bit more urgency, the F bias. Again, into red, flashing. It's the second time we've been down at this level for the setup 10 at the 1 point level, even a couple of ticks below that. Or on the 3 and the 5 minute and even the 10-minute trend line. Could see that if it does break down below that, it could move in very quick fashion. There's a challenge here of just deciding whether or not you take a point or whether you look for the bigger move down to come in. Seeing the tick begin to soften again, though the F is spiking down as well as the E. And we did fill that first compound level, and we can look to lock in even a tick on that. I'd like to see whether or not we haven't moved through that 69 level with urgency. We may see that come. 69 represents 2 points on that double. We can move down here a little bit further through this trend line. And this is still testing here at this point, or it's still testing this low here at this point. We'll look to lock in the 1 point here right now. And moving down here below this level. Lock in 1 tick. We need to see this move down below 60. Well, 67 looks like there might be a little bit of a resistance, and below that the 64.50. So again, if this fills the third level of compound, and that can really start to move down here nicely. It's coming back up here with our volumes turning. This is going to be the challenge here, volumes and ticks turning. Still have the D down, still have the 1s down, 3s have come down now, 5s have turned. So this could look very nice if the trending does continue. We have a pullback in relation to a 10-5 to consider the next red arrow. We are right on the 10-minute channel here, so this is one to watch for. There's that 4-point level of the compound entry at 67.25. And I've got my stop there at the 69.75, which is 2 ticks above this last retracement here to 69.25. We're looking for 10-5 entry as well on the red arrow, the next red arrow. And this could drop down very nicely through the 67.25. That is, as I mentioned, on the 5-minute chart, you can see that as a minor point of resistance potentially. Below that are 64, 64.75. There was another we did fill that compound there, 67.25, as well as the entry on the set of 10.5. So I will have 1 point target on that. I will lock in 1 tick on my setup 10 and just keep the 2-point stop on the setup 10.5 at 69.25. Just had to adjust my my ladder there a little bit. Again, the 66.25 is the 1 point target on the setup 10.5. We do have our 3 times or 3 compound entry on the setup 10. Do have our ticks inclining up here. A little bit of jumpiness. See our 1s starting to turn, but our 10s, 5s, 3s all down quite nicely. Bouncing up here a little bit. This may take us out here of our compound. Let's hope that it doesn't. If not, we will look to come back in again. Again, the 1 point target on our setup 10.5 at 66.25. Do have our, and I'm just going to take 3 ticks, which is on the setup 10 there, 3 ticks profit. I took times 3, which would be 2 1/4 points. 10.5 has started to soften as well. And I just got out at break even on that 10.5 with the 5-minute softening. Did not move as quickly as what we would want to see. Can look to see perhaps another setup 10 entry. Looks like we had another entry there in terms of our setup 10. Actually, even well, 5 is just slightly off there. 10A, 10B, and just putting that in there with setup 10 and a 10A. Again, look to try to compound this again at each of those levels. And I'll just look at an increment of a 1 point target that was break even on the last 10.5. The earlier setup 10A was 1 point.
Just to reiterate before, when I was talking about how um, some of my personal preference, when we look at trades, we look at a setup of two charts. When I like to look for more confidence in trades, especially on a day like today when we've seen a lot of non-trending in the market, it's it's nice to see more than two charts in the trade before you enter. And just at the moment, this is a prime example of one of my favorite times to trade. We have a 10-5-3 A, B, and we had the C a moment ago. The C is flattened at the moment, but still at the very moment we have a 10-5-3 AB. That's five charts all agreeing in the setup, and that's quite a bit of information. And just as we're seeing, it's pushing downwards, and there's certainly a little bit of trending now in play. Just looking at the overview information for the day very quickly. Feel free to cut me out here, Darren, as we're in the middle of the trade. Looking at the trend for the day, looking at the 10-minute charts in the top left, we can see that we've risen from about 1951 all the way up to about 1973, and now we've come back about 7 points. We can also see that the trend line follows the 10-minute charts. It's the purple and light blue line that fluctuates. It follows the sine wave pattern of up and down. You can see it's been purple for the last, even extending into yesterday, it's been purple pushing upwards, and now we've seen it go flat just for about the course of 10 to 20 minutes, and it's turned around. It's been pushing downwards, the light blue color. Also, our C has come back in, so now we have 10-5-3 ABC, which is certainly nice. The bottom three is just a little bit flat, actually, maybe a little bit less than 45 degrees. Still have the 10-5 AB, ABC. So
we're coming close to tapping on, again, the 1 point on the set of 10-5. Did fill that 1 point on the 10-5. And still looking to see if we can't have another trail opportunity. I just had to calculate that last compound, and ended up being a net total of 2 3/4 point gain. On the first level, out at 68, we gained 2 1/4 point. The second entry at 69.25, we gained 1 1/4 point. The last entry at 67.25 lost 3 ticks. So that ended up being 2 3/4 point netted out. So even though it was just essentially a 3-tick exit, just working out the summation of all of those entries did work out to 2 3/4 points on the compound basis. And we may be able to see that happen again here. Again, we've seen 3 trades on 10A, 2 10As and a 10-5, netted out 2 points on this in terms of the test mode. We are just tracking the setup 10s for tracking. Anything else is just test, as we've hit the 4 points down in the extras as well in that non-trending period. A pullback here. Possible to look at another red arrow for a 10A, 10-5. You can see how strongly that did pull back when the F went into green. Ticks moved up. Of course, the ones in the volumes are green here at the moment. You can see this come right back down again, though. We have broken through the 10-minute trend line. And now with that last move down, and we may be starting to see more of an attempt or a move down to that 64, perhaps even beyond, but we're perhaps at least down to that 64. Let's see how strong our smaller charts are upward. See the E beginning to spike into green, and that could add some pressure upward. See how much turn there is in our threes. At the moment, the C bias, as you mentioned, Brandon, still in the red and still angled down. Oftentimes we see the convergence of the threes turning and the C bias beginning to move up and even into green as being the real herald of that 3 effect. could still happen here in this move up, but at the moment we are still looking for the next red arrow for another 10-5, 10A entry. And of course, do have the setup 10 with the predetermined compound levels already set into the ladder there. See the ones beginning to turn. D bias in red, E bias in red. Let's see if that F can move down as well. And the volumes in ones turn. There's another entry there in terms of the setup 10-5, entered at 65.75, so 1 point target there at 64.75. Again, that also equates to the first level of compound on the setup 10 at 64.75. It does look like, as you said, that some trending is coming back in. That A bias has come very strongly down now. Let's see if these ones can turn. They've already started to turn. Our ticks just showing a little bit of green upward, which is causing just to push up here a little bit. See, those threes did straighten down. That C bias gave us a little bit of angle downward again. A little bit more action in the market here right now, a little bit more jumpiness. We're almost 1 million contracts traded on the day. We'll need to wait for our ticks to begin to turn down, though. The F bias angling down, giving us some staying power at this level. Conflicted in our ones and volumes here at the moment. That will need to sort itself out. Let's see if we can attack this 65.25 and move through. We've hit it now 4 times. 5 times if you count the first attempt downward. Back around 11.23. One of our 3 minutes turned green. Our C bias is still angled down. See if our volumes or ones can turn down. Ticks will need to come back into play and just overpower any 3 effect at least at this stage. A has come in quite nicely. We're attacking the 65.25 again. And we did fill our 1 point target as well as the compound. Compound is our break even on the compound is 65.75. So I will get myself ready to lock in that break even here. I don't want to do it quite yet. Give it a little bit of leeway here on our setup 10. See, our ones did not turn down as of yet, still with our C bias angled downward. We did have the 1 point gain on that last 10A. Of course, also filled the first level of compound on our setup 10. Break even on that is 65.75. Just have the stop 2 points back of that at the moment. we have a pullback arrow in terms of that white arrow for another 10.5, another 10A on the next red arrow. We may see that come in. See the one starting to turn. Those volumes have certainly come down. Again, looking for a red arrow on the 10.5, 10A. Still tracking and got 64.75 on that setup 10.5, 10A. 1 point target. I am going to lock in one tick on my setup 10 at 65.50. Just now that it's moved down there a bit, I'll still keep the 2 point stop on the 10.5. Actually tapping on the point for that right now. Tapped on it several times, did not fill. Still some nice pressure downward of those ones turning. There we did fill on that setup 10.5 at 1 point. Locked in the 1 tick. I'm going to lock in 2 ticks on the setup 10. Again, my break even on that, I know it's different than what it says there, but I've been keeping it tracked separately, is at 65.75. You may see this bounce around and jump up here with the volumes turning. In fact, I think I'm just going to lock in break even, just give it a little bit of leeway. So there's no loss on this setup 10 trade, but just give it a little bit of leeway for those ticks to begin to move down again. See a bit of a turn in the ticks happening. Ones are still down nicely. Our volumes did start to turn. Again, that was a pullback for another 10.5 opportunity if there is another red arrow that comes in. Here's another red arrow. And again, coming close to tapping on the 1 full point on the 10.5, also the level at which the next compound will come in on the setup 10, third and final compound. $62 looks like it's another point of resistance. Looks like the market wants to press down, just having a little bit of resistance here at this level. Resistance looks like it's at 62 though. in terms of I'm going to lock in on at least my setup 10, the 2 ticks, just to lock in that on the first and second compound level. 65.25 is just above that 317 trend line. Still have the 2-point stop at 65.75 on the setup 10.5, 10A. With an entry at 63.75. Coming back down here again in this range. Let's see with the ticks beginning to turn if this will push this down. And we've come down here ultimately almost 10 points off of that turnaround at the 73.50 level. Almost looking to wait for these ticks to turn. Volume needs to come in behind this. Ones are very nice. Just a lot of red across the board, just hovering in this range. Need a little bit of added momentum here. Still in this 10.5 at 63.75, or 10A, 10.5. Did get another red arrow there, which was nice to see. Need these volumes to come in behind it, though. We are sitting right now in around 63.75, which is a 2-point level on the doubled setup 10. So we may look to consider exiting if we don't see these volumes turn down here anytime soon. C is still angled down sharply and in the red, even though our 3s continue to be flattening. Here we see one of them turning. So I just got out at 64.25 for the setup 10, just to lock in that profit. We still have the 10.5. And the 2-point stop is at 65.25. Sorry, it should be at 65.75. 63.75 is the entry, and it just took me out on that. So with that 3 beginning to turn and then the C beginning to soften, that was the end of that. So it was a 2-point loss on that 10A. I will have to just calculate the setup 10 there with the 2 level of compound. I did get out at 64.25. So that was a 3-point gain on that setup 10 with the 2 compounds. First entry is 66.75, out at 64.25 for 2.5, and then second entry at 64.75, out at 64.25 for a 2 tick gain. So 3 points in total there on that. And we did lose 2 points on that setup 10A. Still have the 10-5, still have an opportunity for it to come down again as well as a setup 10A. Just had a bigger pullback. Let's see if the threes, looks like they're turning a little bit further here, so we may have come close to hitting that 62, but we may be turning around just ahead of that. Let's see how these threes begin to turn. We will try to just hold off here a little bit in terms of the base 10s. Just with those threes turning, we have seen quite a bit of impact here, unless we see these smaller charts really move in that direction. See the volumes at the top maybe starting to turn. We did overstep the 64, 63, 75 by about 3 ticks, so that point of resistance could still have some play here. We did push through it by 3 ticks, but it could have just whipped back in as these threes are turning. In fact, there is, if I can get the 64.25 again on the setup 10 and the 10-5. And now our threes are turning. We are tracking our setup 10-5 at least in test mode. We can still track our setup 10 on that last entry, and let's see if that, even despite our 3 minutes turning, we see our volumes turning down and our 1 minutes maybe coming in behind that. This is also another test, at least from the setup 10-5 perspective, on the impact of these 3 minutes turning and that C bias coming up. So this is also a good, valuable view of things just on that basis to see the impact of that as we shift back tomorrow into regular tracking on the base 10s, base 5s, and just having a little bit more clarity. Well, the 10-5 is now gone. Got out at just a half a point down on that, and the A bias softened less than 45 degrees as well. Still have the setup 10, and we may be able to just target one point on that. Let's just see if we soften a little bit more on that A bias. We'll look to get out of that setup 10. And someone's just mentioned to me, and I'll just get out of break even, we were going to stave off looking at setup 10s when the 3 minutes were against us, so I just got out of break even on that. Thank you for pointing that out. That was something that we did talk about. We would test, in the case of today, the 10-5 or 10A, if that was in place. It's not with the setup 10, unless the threes are green. We are looking out of that. We are looking at scalps upward, however, now with the threes in place. We do have close to a volume E, a 1E upward. So it was interesting and valuable to note with those threes turning and that C bias beginning to angle up, particularly at the bottom of the range on the threes, the impact that did have ultimately on staving that downward move. We've actually come up with a couple of higher highs here in the last couple of pushes up, moving through the 3 minute and 5 minute trend line now as well. If we do see a 10-5 or a 10A or 10B come in again downward, we will look to track that in our test mode, but not the setup 10. Just had our 3 minutes replot there. Not yet 45 degrees, but certainly agreeable. We do have the D spiking up, nothing to match or pair that with for a scalp. And a little bit more turn in that bottom 3 minute before we can see a 3D upward. Looks like our A bias is flattened a little bit more as well. Coming into a consolidation zone here again. Volumes E, F, all moving down. So this may push down, not set up 10 with those threes against us, and we don't have enough information for a base 10. No A bias, no 5-minute ergodics, no B bias. 63.75 is a resistance. Also 63.25, 63. Nothing there on that sell arrow based on the information I just described. And a drop down there, and nothing for us to begin to look at. That A bias just starting to come back toward 45 degrees. That was the kind of drop we wanted to see on that first or last attempt at another 10, 5, 10A and set up 10 re-entry, but just did not happen or did not time well enough with that. Of course, our 3 minutes were turning as well, and in that course of things, we shouldn't have been in that setup 10 at the least. Though the 10A, we were in there on that in a proper manner. A bias still slightly shy of 45 degrees. We just passed our 1150 mark. Didn't plot any new information on the 5 minutes at all. That was helpful. 10 minutes still straight down. But our 3 minutes are against us. They may be starting to turn back toward the red here. C bias continuing to be stronger. So this was just a bit of a bigger pullback and what looks to be a continuing larger move downward. We are into our 62 level, which is a potential bounce point. And just based purely on those 10-minute ergodics, this was a nice move down from even the 70, well, even the breakout of the 69 level. Almost 7 points down. If we had kept that initial compound without losing that setup or having that, actually having that bigger pullback, we could have still been in that initial compound. So here, 3 minutes starting to both turn red. Can soon consider scalps downward, and we would need to see a pullback here in terms of considering setup 10 or a base 10 downward. I'd like to see a little bit of certainty in the angles of those 3 minutes though, not just flat. Let's see if we can see a pullback or even a sideways motion for at least a 10A entry, as that A bias is angling onto 45 degrees. We lost our 3 minute again. to conflict, so the setup 10 is off unless we see that come back again. That's why I like to see a little bit of angle on the threes, just for that reason. If they're flat, they can waver back and forth color-wise. A little bit slight on that A bias, but if it comes back down again, we could see that A come back for a 10A. See what happens in our 2 or 3 minutes in the next 20 odd seconds as they replot at 11:54. Do have a pullback arrow there if we do see that A bias at 45 degrees for a 10A. Again, not a little bit shy on that A bias. We may see it come down again here though and give us angle. We are into our last 4 minutes here, and we'll change on the 5 minutes at the 11:55 mark. Close on that A bias, just not there yet. I was just doing a recalculation on the first compound of the set of 10, and I was off by just 1 point. My initial entry was at 71.25, out at 68 was 3 1/4, not 2 1/4 on that first level. There's a sell arrow. It looks to be on a setup 10A with that A bias at 45 degrees, 61.75. And those threes now are starting to come back to red. We'll just target the 1 point here. We're into the last 3 minutes here on our session time. Still spiking down in that A bias. We're willing to watch it. It's wavering down, or wavering off a little bit. And we do see the ones volumes turning up with that tick. A bias still looks like it is valid, though it is softening. And it looks like that is now less than 45 degrees. So we'll have to exit that just at a point down on that setup 10A test. Looked like it was going to move down, but did not do it. We do have potential scalp consideration upward here, with the 3s now green. Haven't seen a scalp yet. Actually looks like our charts have frozen there. It was 11:58:03 for the longest time. Now it's just 04. Clock on my computer is now 11:59, so I think we've just had our charts freeze there on us.
Anyway, coming into the last 20 minutes of our session, we can look to wrap up. Today was a really interesting day. We saw a lot of non-trending in the first half of the session, and in the second half we saw a good amount of trending. We had an opening of around 1951, rose up to about 1973, came down to, well, the charts are frozen on 1963, but came all the way down to 1961. You're able to lock in a good amount. There are the charts that they've updated. We're able to lock in quite a good amount of profit in the move downwards with the setup 10 that came into play. So good to observe what happened today. We saw non-trending and then we saw trending. We experienced the non-trending and identified that it was in play and took a more careful approach. We said that we were stopped out at the 4 and 4 for the day, and then using compounding methodology, we used the setup 10 information to take some more profit on the way down, and in a moment we'll be able to hear from Darren just how we did in totals for the day.
Okay.
Sorry.
Go ahead. I'll just do that, and then you can do the final wrap up then. Yeah, in terms of regulars, just with our setup 10, we actually ended up netting out 4 points there. We did have the initial 2 3/4 point loss early on in the day, but with the last series of moves down, I guess starting when the 10 minutes were halfway down in their red cycle, we were able to do 2 compounds there, and did net 3 3/4 on the first one, did net 3 on the second one. So that did offset with the 2 3/4 loss for a 4-point gain on that. Interesting, I did keep the stop tight on that initial compound. Took 3 ticks, which, you know, when you work everything out, worked out to the 3 3/4 point. But if we had just kept our stop just a little bit further back, didn't take that, it actually moved down another 2 or 3 points there on that, and of course that compound would have been very, very nice. We did do the second compound after that, but I think there was maybe a couple of points of movement before being able to see another entry for that. So, but just given the day that it was a wise thing to take that profit, particularly when we saw those 3 minutes starting to turn. Of course, they didn't at the time, at any rate, and to continue to press down. They have turned down. We've seen ourselves push up. We had 5As early on, and that did take us out there on 2 trades with a couple of greater than 2-point losses there, down 5 1/4 on the 5As. Then our extras, we did have another 5A for a 2-point stop out just in the process of 3 minutes having turned, but just continuing to be strong, and the smaller charts at the time were pressing in the opposite direction as well. All that information, that immediate momentum against the direction of the 5A. 5A was in the extras down 2 points. 1E, which we transitioned to a 3D. Interesting, we were down 2 ticks on that, but the set and forget of the 1E at the 3 ticks would have gained that. We just tapped several times on the 1 point for the 3D and didn't fill that, had to take a 2 tick loss. And then a 1A, we had to take a 1.5 loss for the 4 points down in extras. Interesting, in our testing, on the non-setup 10s into our test mode after the 4-point loss on the extras, we were up half a point. Had several trades on the 10As. In fact, we did have a 2-point loss on a 10A, which did net us out at 1 point gain, and then a 10-5 we were half a point down on 3 trades there on the 10As, so, or 10-5s. So did start to see the trending come back in again. The market wasn't moving as quickly downward, but certainly was moving downward, and I think that was sort of just a good lesson that that we can maybe expect. I think, as you said or mentioned, Brandon, to come into the fall, those kinds of dynamics in the 10-minute ergodics, particularly as the A moves into the red, can really bode well for some good setup 10 compounds. Just playing that very safe with the 2 and the 4 point additional compound entries, and just really keeping that profit mark tight. If the market was moving a little bit quicker in that direction, I certainly would expect to have seen that to really fill more on that compound. Compound is a little bit more aggressive. You can even just take the approach of trailing 2 points behind the market moving in your direction on a set of 10. Or if the 3s are certainly in agreement and you're in a 10A, looking to trail that as well, locking in profit along the way. So there we have it. Regular tracking setup 10 up 4 points, 5A down 5 1/4. Our extras non-setup 10 down 4 points, and then just testing just ended up netting out half a point there, but we will not be including that, but just that was our view of just seeing whether or not the trending was coming back in there in the last 45 minutes or so. Over to you, Brandon.
Again, thank you everyone for joining us today, and we hope to see it'd be really nice to see a lot more trending like we saw in the second half tomorrow. And we look forward to everyone joining us back here tomorrow. Again, if you're new, look at the videos and look at the handouts that we have in the handout section above our chat box. And we always appreciate feedback as well. If any of our members or guests would like to see more explanation on any of the charts or any expansion when we're talking about trades, feel free to leave those comments to us in the chat box, or feel free to email us or give us a call. Have a nice day. We'll see you back here tomorrow.